Hey students, welcome back to Buddy. So last chapter we were at Aunt Joyce's house in Mississippi, and the new character is Aunt Joyce, and that's where they go. They go to Aunt Joyce's house whenever they need to evacuate because of a hurricane. They drove 8 hours to Aunt Joyce's house in Mississippi because everyone was evacuating New Orleans at the same time. Little T's family has to sleep in the same room, and little T misses Buddy and sends him encouraging messages. The hurricane did come to Mississippi. It caused great destruction around Aunt Joyce's home. There's no electricity. There's no transportation. Okay, let's find out what happened in chapter 19. Once the storm clears up, it gets hotter than ever. The air is still and quiet. There ain't no breeze blowing. There ain't no birds singing. My guess is there ain't no birds left. And if there is, there ain't nowhere for them to sit. When we stand on the porch and look out, Aunt Joyce's yard looks like an ocean of pine branches with broke-off trunks sticking up every once in a while. Daddy asks Aunt Joyce if she's got a saw he can start cutting some of the branches with. He says he wants to cut a path to the garden. He wants to make his way to her car. She finds a half-rusted saw and an old axe in a closet by her washing machine. She says they ain't been used in 1,000 years, and they look it. Daddy picks them up, heads outside, and starts chopping. Every morning, Daddy and Grandpa T sit in Aunt Joyce's car and listen to the radio. When I ask Daddy what he's listening to, he just looks at me and tells me to go pick up some shingles. I'm making a pile of shingles beside Daddy's pile of branches. I can't help but notice they ain't all the same kind of shingles, and there ain't no other house nearby that I can see. So students, this means that this storm was so powerful, and even though Aunt Joyce lives far away from other people, the shingles from other people's homes blew blocks and blocks and blocks away and landed in Aunt Joyce's yard. We eat steak and chicken from the freezer. We drink hot drinks out of the can. We run out of clean clothes. We pull all the tomatoes still hanging on the vines. Mama says she's losing count of the days, but I ain't. Every night when I lay down on my pallet, I say to myself, that's another one. I lay there and I'm wondering, where in that bathroom does Buddy lay himself down? That tile is cold and hard, and we didn't put his blanket in there with him. I'm wondering if he can eat all he needs out of that hole in the bag. I'm wondering, what if the stopper don't work in the tub and all the water drains out? Sometimes I think about the window and the pecan tree, and I squinch up my eyes and I think as hard as I can to Buddy. And this is what little T says to Buddy. He kind of sends him a message. When I get home, I'm thinking to him, I'm going to make it up to you. I promise. I tell him I'll sell my bicycle back to the lady and it will be dog biscuits every day. I tell him I'll make him that leg. I know Grandpa T will help me. We'll walk to the river. It won't be long, Buddy. I'm thinking to him, it won't be long. But no rescue trucks come. We've been living in that house without electricity for 5 days. On day 6, Mama says, we got to get milk. This baby needs milk. Grandpa T nods real slow. And I need my medicine. Are you about out? Daddy says real sharp. Grandpa T pulls the little brown bottle out of his pocket and shakes it. It don't make hardly any noise. So there aren't any pills left, right, in Grandpa T's pill bottle? And Mama needs milk for the baby. Why didn't you say something before? Daddy asks. And then he looks at Aunt Joyce. How far are we from town? 10 miles, she says. Daddy looks down at his shoes. I can walk 10 miles, he says, and heads for the door. We run after him. When will you be back, Daddy? When I get back, he says. We wait all day. We wait all night. We wait all morning. Baby Terrell's crying something bad. Mosquitoes have bitten his arms all to pieces. But we have to keep the windows open because it's so hot. Mama's run out of diapers, and Aunt Joyce is ripping up her sheets. Tanya's sucking on her thumb all day. Mama sits on the front porch and fans herself. Grandpa T sits on the sofa and leans his head back. He hardly moves at all. He's gone, and can't nobody go with him. When it's almost night again, we hear a truck a long way off. We all jump up, and then after a while, we see Daddy walking down the long drive with two other men. They got great big saws. They pulled the cords and fired them up, and then they start cutting their way to the house. We can smell the pine trees again. We're jumping up and down and cheering. When they're done, me and Tanya go running down the road to Daddy, and we jump in his arms, and Mom is standing on the porch yelling, "Thank you, thank you." And Daddy grabs us up. He stinks something bad, but it smells good. He sends us down the road. Ride with the men, he says. We'll be right behind you. Mama and Aunt Joyce are already piling stuff in Aunt Joyce's car. And I'm thinking, we're going home at last. I'm thinking, when I open that bathroom door, Buddy's probably going to knock me over. He'll be so glad to see me. I'm thinking, I'll take him outside and we'll walk a little in the yard to stretch his legs. And then I'll take him to the shed and we'll sit in the dark. And I'll tell him about the storm and he'll listen to every word, every single word. Get ready, Buddy, I'm thinking. Here I come. Are you taking us all the way to New Orleans? I say to the men. They laugh. Ha! Just to town, they say. All the way in, we're looking at what that storm did. Trees are down everywhere. Electricity lines are laying around like spaghetti. Some houses have their roofs torn off. One house has a swimming pool ripped up and laying against the front porch. Cars are laying around upside down and sideways. One store has its big plate glass window busted and yards of cloth trailing out into the parking lot. Is it like this in New Orleans? I say. They look at me. You ain't heard, they say. Heard what? I say. New Orleans flooded, they say. The levees broke. Everything is under water. Tanya sucks in her breath. I sit real quiet. The engine is loud in that truck. Everything? I say. Yes, sirree, one man says, right up to the rooftops. Everything. Ain't nothing living in that town no more. Okay, how is little T feeling? He just finds out that New Orleans is completely underwater and nothing is living anymore. The men take us to the shelter in town. It's a big arena where football teams play their games. Out front, there's a long line of people waiting to get in. Some of them are carrying suitcases. Some have garbage bags. Most of them don't have anything at all. The men wait with us until the others get there. Then they're gone. Daddy says they're headed out to find other people stuck in their houses in the country. He says he's already helped them cut the trees to 2 other houses today. He says at one house the lady was dead and the man didn't want to leave. They're too old for this, Daddy says. We had to carry the man out the door. He was crying like a baby the whole way. Aunt Joyce takes one look at that line of people waiting to get in the shelter, and she says there ain't no way she's going to stay in a shelter. She says she's driving up to Atlanta right now to stay with her daughter, even if she has to drive all night. She tells Grandpa T to come on with her, but he says no. She begs him and begs him, but he keeps shaking his head. Finally, she says, there ain't no fool like an old fool, and drives off, leaving us waiting in line with everybody else. When we get to the front, they give us badges to wear. They write down numbers off Daddy's driver's license. They take us to 6 cots lined up in a row on about the 50-yard line. How's baby Terrell going to sleep on a cot? Mama says. And Daddy puts his hand on her arm and says, we're the lucky ones. Meaning they actually got a spot in the shelter. Okay? They got in. I'm sitting there on my folding cot. Grandpa T shaking his head. Mama's opening the milk the ladies gave us. Tanya sucking her thumb. I can't help it. I blurt it right out. The men in the truck told us New Orleans is flooded. They said everything is underwater. Everything. Mom is busy with the baby. Grandpa T is looking around for the shelter doctor. They don't look at me. But Daddy looks at me. He looks at me a long time. It's true, son, he finally says. Everything. He looks at me a little while longer. I'm sorry, he says. I'm real sorry. I lay down on my cot. I curl up. I close my eyes. I go to a place where nobody else can go, not even Grandpa T. So little T is feeling despondent now, shocked, depressed. Buddy's probably gone. New Orleans is gone. He's alive. He's in a shelter. But Daddy did show compassion, right? He did say, he's sorry that all this is happening. Let's go to chapter 19 notes. Okay, so they start off at Aunt Joyce's house and then they're at the shelter. Little T's family is losing track of the days they are at Aunt Joyce's house. Daddy leaves to walk 10 miles to town to buy milk and medicine, but returns with 2 men who take the entire family to a shelter. Mississippi is in ruins. Little T's family gets accepted at a shelter. Little T sends more thinking messages to Buddy. New Orleans is flooded. The levees broke. Everything is underwater. Little T feels despair. Everything, he is told, is underwater. Here's a quote that I like. I lay down on my cot. I curl up. I close my eyes. I go to a place where nobody else can go, not even Grandpa T. Here's the stop and jot question. Explain where you think little T goes when he states, I go to a place where nobody else can go, not even Grandpa T. And this might seem like a tough stop and shop question. Grandpa T sometimes closes his eyes and he pretends he's not listening to other people, and he starts to daydream to escape. But now little T says he's like beyond that. He's not even daydreaming. So what place? Where does little T go? What is he thinking? Okay, so that's that, and I look forward to seeing you at Zoom this week where we can discuss these chapters as well as the upcoming chapters. Ciao for now.